Tim Kawakami joins us, covered the Warriors and Bay Area sports for literally decades, and he's with us.
Eons.
Yes, eons. Tim, I know you caught up with Bob Myers this morning. Before we get to your conversation with him, you're watching this team. You know, there's 87% of the regular season still to be played, so there's a lot of basketball left. But how serious do you kind of view the Warriors' issues? Are they, super serious and they may need roster construction changes, or is this just bumps in the road that all teams go through?
Yeah, I'd probably put it in the middle there. I don't know that it's panic time and gather up some players and trade them for something and change what your plans are. I think it might get there, which I would not have said at the beginning of the season. I just think that road trip was just a disaster, and I mean, they're not debating that part. It's true. It looked funky last night, too, for much of the game. You shouldn't be needing Steph Curry to bail you out with 47 points in a home game against Sacramento and then celebrate it after. And there's definitely second unit issues. There's issues with the defense up and down, and there's no question there are major problems here. I think they've got enough talent to figure it out. I don't know that they will. I think that's up in the air. I think, you can't just write them down to be the first, second, third seed in the West. And they're a dangerous team in the postseason. I don't know. But it's going to be awfully hard to get to the level of where they got to start trading people, because you start trading people, it's got to be the young guys, and you're not getting value back. You're not even coming close. Now, maybe they do it. Maybe they arrange some things to try to figure out to get one decent young veteran. They may be on a slightly different timeline. I don't know. That's going to be very hard to figure out. I don't think they want to go there, but I think they can figure it out. I think Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and if Klay Thompson plays better, if Jordan Poole plays better, they still have a live shot at anything they want. But there's some real shakiness there. I'll just put it that way. They're on warning. And if we're going to move, like Bob Myers talking to me wasn't like saying, I'm terrified. He wasn't saying this is terrible, but he was saying it does have to get better. And everything, they're going to have to look at things. If it doesn't get better, by January, certainly by early February, and trade deadline, towards late February. But it's early. There are some fundamental problems, but I think they've got the talent to kind of figure it out. They clearly haven't. That defense and that second unit, these lottery picks, they're a lot further away than they thought they'd be right now. They still have time, though.
Given the nature of what they're trying to do, which is build the team of tomorrow while still keeping on to the team of today, is this an unusual problem for an NBA team to have, where the starting unit has performed as well as it has, but the backups have universally been either profoundly disappointing, awful, or invisible? How rare is this?
It's relatively rare. There have been other times. I think maybe some of that Celtics Garnett team, and there might have been some others where the starters were just so much better than everybody else. Anytime LeBron played in Cleveland, he was a plus, and when he was out in 8 minutes, they were minus 14. There are times when that's happened. There's teams that have won like that. I don't think we've seen the extremes where you have 4-time champions in their 30s, all making huge money, max contracts, and then you have lottery picks. Not just veteran, journeymen. You have lottery picks, guys who have some reason to believe that they're going to be stars in the NBA, and the team has. And they're being groomed to be the second unit, going to move into the first unit at some point. And it's this separate. It's taking them this long to get that going. I think that kind of comparison between the first and second unit, it might be unique. Just the Hall of Famers and young talent that isn't ready, but you kind of can't wait forever. I agreed with them. You have to put them in the spot where they're going to play. But you can't just say, these guys, we'll have them sit another year. Well, you can't do that with the salaries that Steph, Klay, and Draymond are making, and Wiggins. Jordan Poole now sliding into that high salary slot next season. You can't just say, okay, we don't need to play them again. Now maybe they have to move it around. trade two of them to get somebody, one player who's useful. I don't know who that player is. I don't think they want to do it. But yeah, I think the separation between the two sides might be unique in the history of the NBA, and they're feeling it. They're feeling the difficulty of blending this. Steve Kerr for sure is trying. We've seen it. He's trying to play Wiseman. He's trying to play Kuminga, and he's getting frustrated, and he's yanking them out, and he's putting in two-way players. That was the setting thing. Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome, not two players I had down on the Warriors' key players on the roster bingo card, and they are playing immense minutes. At least they were last night. I don't expect that to continue. Dante DiVincenzo's coming back pretty soon. Iguodala's maybe back in a week, 2, 3, whatever that timetable is. And I think Kuminga and Wiseman and Moody, and most Moody another one, are going to get themselves into that rotation regularly. But right now it's funky, and we are seeing that why it is. We're seeing why this isn't attempted very often, and many teams can't. You don't have 4-time champions very often, and you don't have 3 lottery picks very often. This is just a unique situation, and they're fighting through it. They're definitely fighting through the difficulty of it.
If 11 games is not the moment where you have to, quote, do something, at what point would you fashion that time to be? Is it 20 games? Is it 50? I mean, how much longer can they be a team struggling to, be 12th in the conference? And I'm not asking whether, Steve Kerr is comfortable with this. When does the organization as a whole go, we got to do something, and we got to do something now?
20 games is usually the NBA benchmark for just feeling it out. I think it's a little longer than that for this game just because these players are so young, and you just don't want to bail on James Wiseman. You don't want to bail on Jonathan Kuminga. You certainly don't want to bail on Moses. But I think it's got a little more than that, but I would say early January, whatever that number of games is, 35, 37, if they're not doing it by then, and can't tell you exactly what that means, but I would just say if they're not playing better defense, I think that's a very easy low bar. They got to be in the top 15 in defense. They're 27th now in defensive efficiency. We can see it. The eye test is they are horrible on defense, and that's the first team and the second team and the third team and every team you could mention is terrible on defense for the Warriors. Then if it's still sliding by then. And God knows they could have an injury, right? I mean, this is the leeway they don't have anymore. Where, Steph misses 15 games like he did last season. They can't go through that this season and expect to look very good in the middle of that. So I would say January, mid-January, and then see where they are with some hard decisions. I mean, again, I would think the most tradable thing they've got is James Wiseman. I'm not reporting anything. I'm not saying anything. We know how much the front office loves him. We know how much Joe Lacob loves him, who has a pretty strong voice in all decision making. But that's a big contract, big salary next season. They picked up his option for next season. They have this big tax thing. There's one way to, partial way to get out of it is to move him. Now, you probably can't take a salary coming back, or at least a future salary coming back. I don't know. Like, there are some tricky things coming up, and they can't really trade Poole until next season. So that's not a quick solution, and I don't think they want to. They don't want to do any of this. It's not just because of personal preference. Like, they've set this up so the young guys are coming up, aren't making a ton of money. Jordan Poole just started making money. It's going to be hard to move him. Like, this has to work in the way their salary structure is convened. Now they start trying to get out of it. Things are bad. There's ways, but man, it's going to be tricky, and I don't think they're going to get the great return on any of this. So it would have to be pretty stark, and it would have to be more than 20 games, I think. 30, 35 games, right up to the deadline, maybe 40, 45 games, before I think there's any real serious consideration for that trigger. But if they did, I think the piece that would be most likely to move is James Wiseman, because I'm not sure he fits ever with the Steph Curry, Draymond Green team. Now, maybe you hold on to him for the time after those two guys, but maybe they can't wait that long, and maybe they shouldn't wait that long. Again, not reporting anything, but if you had to say one thing that they were looking at, like they might be looking at, who happens to be one of the owner's favorite players, so that's another point that I want to make in there. that would be the player I'd be looking at, but not till January or February.
Be very careful. One of my friends just texted me. Tim Kawakami on 95.7 The Game just said the Warriors are going to hawk Wiseman.
Yeah.
I just got that text.
And we'll make that a Larry Krueger report.
Yeah, Larry Krueger reports. Okay, I'm going to say this. The two-timeline approach is not a basketball plan. That's a business plan. It's about filling the arena for the next decade. And I think it's smart because the arena's opulent and expensive, and people won't go if they could win a title last year and this year, and if they're really bad in 3 years because they trade all the young players and load up for right now, there'll still be empty seats at some point because that's just the way people are. But I got to ask you, you've been covering sports, all sports, for a while. Has the two-timeline approach ever worked for any team in any sport ever? I mean, can you think of any team that has ever done this where it's been successful?
I can't, but I can't think of one where they've had it this disparate, where you've had 3 veterans, and you can't Iguodala, it's 4 who have achieved so much, and you have lottery picks. Like, this was the weird thing. They dropped it in the Kuminga thing with the D'Angelo Russell trade, which was not usual, and they picked up Wiseman because they were terrible because everybody was hurt for a season. Yet they were still going to be there. There were those 3 guys, Klay, Steph, and Draymond, were going to be coming back. It's a rare situation. You can't say, like, oh my God, you shouldn't have taken those lottery picks. They had them. They didn't try to get them. That was what happened, and it wasn't dumb. You got Andrew Wiggins and Donovan Kuminga. It's hard to say, okay, that was dumb. That was smart. And what do you do with those guys? That's the question. You don't get many chances at very talented players when you're a good team. You just don't. Maybe they don't fit. That might be the conclusion they have to make. They don't fit with Steph and Draymond. This is a chance. This is the window to win championships. You maximize every bit of it. I understand every part of that. And if you have excess talent that doesn't work with them, maybe you try to catch them up. But do you know that the player you're acquiring is going to absolutely fit with them? I don't know. Andrew Bogut has said this repeatedly. He's convinced me it's really hard to play center on this team. Now, there are guys who do it and have done it, but it isn't easy. You can't just assume anybody you get, oh, there's a young guy who's really athletic, he'll fit with them. We've seen young guys who are athletic not fit with them. I'm not sure that you will know if you can trade a Wiseman and something else and pick up somebody who's going to fit with you. So, again, they've talked about the two timelines. We probably talked about it too much. I don't know what they were supposed to do, not take the draft pick for Jonathan Kuminga? What they're supposed to do, not draft second when they were terrible? That happened. Those things just happened in the course of this franchise, knowing that they had Curry, Klay, and Draymond. So the question will come in January, February, maybe even in the offseason. If this is not fitting, maybe you trade 1 or 2 of those guys for someone who fits with Steph and Draymond better. But also, Draymond might not be on the team after July, by the way. This luxury tax stuff is real. It's not a fake situation. They are not going to $500 million. And to re-sign Draymond, if he opts out, or even if he stays for the 1 year and doesn't opt out, they're looking at $450, $470, and I do not believe they're going there. They're at $380 now. I think that's about the line is. People can be mad about that. That's fine. That's why they did not match the Gary Payton the second contract. They're paying more than any team in basketball. It's hard for me to say you must pay $100 million more than anybody. You must pay $150 million more than anybody. This is where they're at. When you're paying Steph Curry $52 million, Klay $40, Draymond $26. This is just where you are in that stratosphere. They might have to make a decision about cashing in the lottery picks, but I can't say, boy, that was stupid to draft where you were actually had the pick and take the best player you could. It's hard for me to say that was dumb. It's hard for me to say it was unrealistic. This decision now is coming in the next few months, not the past few months. This is where they have to figure it out into the future. They won the championship last year, right? They won the championship last year. Hard to say that's all screwed up. They still can do it this year. They just got to figure out whether these guys are whether it's worth it to ride with them, and maybe they don't fit, or if you decide they don't fit, you change out two of them for one, and you hope that one player can fit with everybody.
Tim Kawakami joining us on 95.7 The Game, and like that, welcome to your 4 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Damn well better be free. The notion that somehow they had so much good luck that they don't know what to do with it is starting to rise up, and you sort of pointed that out yourself. But what I'm wondering is whether in doing so, the Warriors tried to, get guys that were maybe too young for the for the way they want to play. Because it's not just that, Wiseman didn't have much experience. Kuminga hasn't had much experience either. And those seem to be the two guys that are standing out. The other thing that I'm wondering is how much more complicated did Draymond Green's punch make everything? Because it seems to be the thing that people refer to when they look at Poole and his struggles. Is Poole just having a tough time shooting because streaky shooters have that? Or is he in his own head?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably an accumulation of a lot of things with Poole. He is a streaky shooter. He has had his ups and downs in the playoffs, in the regular season. He had a really bad rookie season. He's turned around. But I think everything counts, and I think there's more anxiety around that team than there was before that punch. I think the contract coming right after the punch, which is they couldn't get out of that. That's when the contract deadline was, but that it was higher than anybody thought it was going to be for various reasons. The fact that he's kind of the leader in, at least maybe not vocally, but just kind of spiritually of the young group. He's kind of looked at as the future. All these things I think could be messing around with him a little bit, just like they mess around with anybody. And the Draymond punch is part of it. I just think it kind of elevated everything. Whatever was there, it didn't come out of thin air. Whatever was there, whatever led to this, and the reaction to it. I think that's almost as important. Everyone going, oh my God, what's going on here? Oh my God, now Jordan Poole owns them. And I was part of this. Jordan Poole now is one of the most important people, because if you don't want to be with the team anymore, they're kind of screwed. And didn't know he was going to start the season like this, but I just think all those things, his family had to react to it. The teammates around him had to react to it. He and Draymond do have lockers right next to each other. They're fine. They sit there next to each other. I don't think they're buddy-buddy, and may never be, but I just think you are hitching yourself to a volatile stock when it's Jordan Poole. And Tyler Hero got basically the same contract. That's why Jordan Poole got the money he got. He's the same thing. These are not rock-solid players, but in the NBA there are very few of them. The Warriors have been incredibly lucky to have many of them, and that's why they won championships. Jordan Poole is not there yet, and they're hoping he gets there, and that was the market price for what he does. But I think just the additive nature of this plus that, plus this, plus that, the punch is part of this, the kind of the falling apart of the other young guy, so he doesn't have the support on that second team. All these things have added up. And Myers brought up something today too. He started at the beginning of last season when Klay was out, and that's when he took off. He took off as a starter next to Steph Curry. Remember when Klay came back, Poole kind of struggled. He really had 3 weeks where he was not good, kind of figuring out the adjustment, not starting, coming off the bench. Now, he'd come off the bench before, but I think he really felt in the flow when he was starting. They are not starting him over Klay Thompson. That's not happening. Now, could they make an adjustment with Looney? There could be little tweaks in there. But I just think you add up all these things to an already volatile player, not a volatile emotional player, but a volatile just kind of up and down, shot goes in, shot doesn't go in. Sometimes he's passive, sometimes he's aggressive. The defense is never going to be a for sure thing with him. I think all those things kind of go together with Jordan Poole, and they've made a bet on him. They made a marketplace bet on him. There's no way around it. They did not wait till next season, but I understood why they did not wait till next season. He's a restricted free agent if they don't re-sign him, and someone's going to go offer him more, and they could lose him for nothing, and they did not want that. These are all bets you have to make, and I'm not ready to push just to say it's over for Jordan Poole, but he has been bad, and I think there's a lot of things for him to work through, and they've got to help him work through it. And it will help if that second team has better players around him or more productive players around him. And I think that's what Kerr right now is frantically trying to do. I can't believe that the solution is Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb, but that's what Kerr came up with last night. And I kept shaking my head and underlining on my notebook, Anthony Lamb is in again. But again, these are all these things coming down at once, and the punch is part of it, no question.
Tim, we
been illustrative of it too. This is tensions. That punch reflected some tensions going on, maybe in the heads of guys, but it's real.
Last 30 seconds in the segment. How concerned are the Warriors about Klay? How concerned are you about Klay?
Klay is Klay. I mean, I just keep thinking the same thing as him. He keeps saying he's going to have a hot game here, and you feel it. You think it's happening. Doesn't happen. He just might be a lesser version. He's admitted he doesn't love hearing it. You just have to accept that maybe instead of twice every 6 games, it happens once every 6 games. The defense is an issue. He was attacked last night by Malik Monk. Klay is aware of that. They're aware. They just kind of have to make adjustments for it and know that he's a threat. He works very well with Steph, and he's not going to make every shot, and he's not going to make as many as he used to. But he made 1 or 2 last night. That's all. They need him to be that threat. They need him to play big. He's not guarding the guards anymore. He's guarding forwards. He's guarding power forwards sometimes. And I just think you have to make that mental adjustment with Klay. He's not the Klay of old, and he might not ever be, but he's pretty good when he's hitting shots. He's extremely valuable.
Tim, we love reading you. Keep up the great work. We'll talk to you again soon.
You got it, guys. Anytime.